is when you're in a situation where you're functioning and you don't know how to fix it, or you're confused, or ask one simple question: what's right about me right now that if I could see it, everything would change?
Hey everybody, this is Pete Costin with the Heart Centered Selling Academy. I got a new bestie friend right here. Her name is Lori Dodson, and she is an integrative business coach, and her program is called Empowered Abundance. And I am so excited to look under the hood and see what's going on here. Lori, how are you doing today?
I am excellent, Pete. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I've been geeking out over your page and your information, and so I'm really excited to be here.
I love that. So, talk to me about what abundance means, because there's so many people that it brings up these concepts of, like, leaning against your Lamborghini, or on your private yacht. What is abundance?
Yeah, so really what we do within our program is we definitely start out with that whole idea of leaning against your Lamborghini, because a lot of people think that that is what is abundance, and they don't realize that they're really looking for fulfillment, right? And
Mm.
so what we do is we really allow people to expand their consciousness of wealth and their worth. And then what that does is it allows what abundance is for them to be brought into their life. And so some people come into my money program, and one of my favorite testimonials is, yes, my money grew, but my marriage exponentially exploded. And I was like, that, right? So yeah, money is a part of it, but we don't really realize that that's just the external excuse for us to tap into that internal wealth, that internal abundance from what our source is.
Yeah, how do you think that we took because money is just a form of just a form of convenience, so that I don't have to give you three chickens for five potatoes. So how did we make money almost like a god? Like, how did we give it so much importance and then attach so much fear and scarcity to it, do you believe?
Yeah, so my personal belief is that when we come into this planet, we're born into our human, which does lack, right? Because the lack is the desire for more, right? And the desire for more is the seed of creation. And so if we look at the fact that exchange of worth and value is really how this physical world goes round, it's no wonder that we put so much power behind the dollar, right? But when we have our awakening and we start to realize what's really important in this life, we recognize, well, there's something energetic behind it, right? And that's really the power. But before we have an awakening, and the majority, again, my perception, but the majority of the world is still in that phase where they haven't really awakened to the fullness of what's behind the veil. And so the only opportunity they have is that lack and scarcity, because they don't realize that the more that they desire is actually their human trying to create. But when we tap into the fact that we are source, that we are what is within us is that source, and that is the part of us that is the power. Well, now from that place of already full empowerment, more lack is actually a great idea. Because again, if I told you, Pete, no more kissing your husband, no more money, no more sharing your heart and your passion with people, you'd be like, no way, it's what fuels me. Exactly. It is that lack, but we just misunderstand it if we don't have both the laws of our human and the laws of our spirit.
Right. Because I feel like if we didn't have those desires, we would lose really what life is all about and the passion of it. Because it's not about the idea of I desire it, therefore I don't have it. It's I desire it, therefore I have something to look forward to, and something to go along a journey towards. And it's so much, it's not so much I think about like the money, but who will I become
Absolutely.
along that, right?
Absolutely. And again, the money, it's just the excuse,
Hmm.
right? It's just the excuse that we see in the physical that drives that thing for us to become the one that
Hmm.
has.
Hmm. And you talked about earlier about something about being the your energy or the genius of you in your business. Talk about that. That was really tasty. I need to know all about that.
Yeah. Well, so many of us, our genius comes so naturally to us that we don't even realize it's a genius.
Hmm.
And so we think, well, anybody can do this. So we actually minimize the very thing that we came to the planet to share. And so then we're trying to figure out what our purpose is, and we're trying to figure out, how we fit in and what's our contribution, when in reality it's that thing that comes so easy to us. So basically we just help people pull that out, see that that is their genius, and then we integrate it into their business, so now that's the driving force and the fuel of their business to start receiving more.
Do you now, this is my personal experience. I find that the broken parts are where the gifts are at.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's those parts of us that we think make us something, that when they break, what shows through is the thing that actually makes
Ooh.
us something.
Ooh. Yeah, so who is that that creates that pattern in front of our gift? Is that like the divine, like wrapping up this beautiful present, sometimes in really ugly wrapping paper, or what, or is that just what life is about, is discovering those little hidden things?
Yeah, I really think that it's a combination of all of that. If we didn't have something to discover, what would be the fun, right?
Hmm.
They say that when if they attach electrodes to our head, whatever, however they test it, but that we have more endorphins the day before Christmas than the day after, because there is that desire to unwrap. But I really think that if we came in knowing our genius and knowing our power, and we could just go, oh, I'll have that. Oh, I'll have that. Oh, I'll do that. There's no sense of value to it. There's no sense of appreciation for it, right? So when it's kind of covered and tainted a little bit and we have to break through, I kind of look at like a butterfly or a chicken. You don't open the cocoon for them, you don't break the egg open, because then they don't have the strength to actually fly and to actually stand on their own. And I think it's just part of the way that the universe is created for us to really be able to embody and appreciate those gifts, because they are the essence and the power that creates universes.
Now you say integrative business coach. So what is the integrative? That's an interesting term. What are we
Yeah,
integrating?
yeah. So the methodology that I go by was actually downloaded to me one day, and it really is the laws of our human and the laws of our spirit. And surprisingly, they are averse from each other. So just as an example, one of the laws of the spirit is to have. We already have everything. We're already perfect. We're already complete. Yet on the opposite side of our human, just like we talked about earlier, the law of the human is to lack, is to desire more, to be incomplete, right? And so when we're functioning from I'm already complete, then I become complacent. But if I'm functioning from my lack, now it's an insatiable desire, right? And we can't satiate it. But if we take and we integrate the two of them,
Mm,
oh, now that is the fullness of life. Because now our desire really is for the more, that just creates an overflow instead of tries to satiate a colander.
I love that. It speaks to me of the Buddhist term. Have you ever heard the Buddhist term shunyata?
No.
So it's this term that it to me, the way I express it is it's like we're always in this potential field of chaos.
Mm.
And it's about how do I remain presence, and I don't mean presence, in the midst of this. And it really came to me on a retreat where I was doing a joy dance in the garden, and then 10 minutes later I got a call that my little brother I'm in charge of was going to the emergency room. And so I had this moment of great sorrow and great joy. And I just realized, I was like, these are both life.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's not up to me to really put any judgment or attachment or identity to either of them, and to not necessarily, call this good and that bad, but to just experience both of them as a human, right?
100%.
Yeah. So
100%. It's
that's
all already accepted. I
uh,
love that.
yeah, that's amazing. So tell me about the process for people, because there's a lot of, and I don't know if you work with women, but I find there's a lot of like tribal guilt for women as far as abundance and success is concerned. And
Hmm.
perhaps even, there might be some that type of guilt even for men as well. But because you're not supposed to be better than dad was, or whatever. And we also have all this attachment
Hmm.
to money. Going through my master's in religious studies, there's a very long form, there's this idea that anthropologists have of what's called limited good. And it's basically from the idea of, if you are rich, it therefore means that you are taking limited resources from someone else, so therefore you are making somebody extremely poor. So that's
Hmm.
a lot to overcome. How do you see people going through that process where first they're allowed to see abundance, including material abundance, for themselves?
Yeah, and we really start from this not being a zero-sum game, right? Because if we look at quantum physics, and quantum physics is every particle or before a particle is the possibility of anything, right? It's a possibility of anything. And so when we recognize it's not a zero sum game, and I can be completely full and you can be completely full, and whatever I came to the planet to have, I can't not have, and I can't take it from somebody else, because that is the law when it comes to me as the creator, right? We don't have limited resources. How often do we find, I mean, I love comparing the ethereal laws to technology, because they play so hand in hand, right? We're making a digital recording right now. You can reproduce this and reproduce this and reproduce this, and it never lessens the original recording. It's just multiplied. And so when we recognize that, really truly, abundance in any facet, whether it be love or opportunity or money or passion or contribution, that it really comes from that law, that source of multiplication, right? Whatever you give out comes back tenfold. Well, how does that work? Well, because the energy behind it is actually what's creating, not the physical. And so we really start from, and that's why we I love the law of the physical and the law of the spiritual, because when we start with the law, now we have something to root and ground and build our house upon. And then we can go into those things like, oh, I was raised this way, or I feel like this came down through my lineage, or whatever somebody's paradigm is for how they receive their patterns, right? Then we can go into releasing those and shifting those. But if we don't start with a law, then everything is, back to your Buddhist word, it's all chaos without any order, right? But we can take all of the chaos and line it up to these self-evident physical laws and self-evident spiritual laws, and then anything is possible after that.
I love that. So is your program, is it like journaling, meditation? What is the actual mechanics of how someone is able to step through and become empowered in their abundance?
Yeah, so we have a super intense 40 days, and it's a combination of, in the morning, what I call a brain dump, where I everybody gets a prompt based on whatever module they're in. So they'll get a prompt in the morning and they open their prompt and then they brain dump. And we just allow the subconscious to say, this is what you really believe, this is what you really think, this is where it came from, or whatever comes up. And then we do whatever work specific to each individual person, because everybody's in a different place of their journey. So whether we're clearing it, whether we're doing some other kind of shifting of it, however that person needs it for their paradigm. And then at night, we actually infuse and ignite our future self. So this goes back to what you were saying earlier about, if we don't have a vision for who we are as somebody who can attract whatever it is their abundance is, then we're not really going anywhere. We're just walking through. So we set it up like, here's this GPS, this is where we're going. And now we're going to release all the obstacles out of the way. And so the combination of the two hits both aspects of what are we getting rid of, but what are we actually inputting? So that's really the foundation of it. And then it's got all different kinds of coaching and some recorded modules and things like that along the way. But the work really is in those two aspects of releasing what's not serving you and bringing in what you're desiring.
So from your clients that you've worked with, are there patterns of where they were to where they've gone to? Talk about somebody's typical. I know that's really hard to do, but I would love to see those different milestones that somebody goes, or awarenesses probably.
Yeah, I would say some of the reoccurring celebrations or wins that we have really are learning how to call back all our energy, right? So most of us don't realize that we're leaking energy everywhere, and energy is power. Right. And so, one of the biggest things that we talk a lot about is, are you minding your own business? Are you staying on your own path? Right. And when we take a look over here at what that person's doing, we don't even realize we just leaked all our energy towards them. And then we come back here, but we left it all over there. So the biggest thing is being able to call back our energy and really living in that power. And there's a difference between knowing that we have it and owning it as ours. Because if you came over to my house and you were like, wow, this is a beautiful house, and I invited you in, and here we are, but you can't sell it, you can't come in and remodel it because you don't own it. Right. So when we realize that all of the aspects, going back again to what you said, everything's already accepted. Right. So when we start to really accept our patterns, everything that we are, everything that we're not, everything we aspire to be, every mistake, when we really start calling back all of that energy and own it all for ourselves, well, now we have the capacity for choice, right? Because in our patterns, we don't have the capacity for choice. Well, what are our patterns? Usually where we're leaking all the energy because this is just what we're supposed to do, right? And you know exactly what I'm talking about with living our life, doing what we're supposed to do, right? So when we're able to call that back, now we can own our life. And really, truly, I love the huge wins. I mean, I have clients who have called and said, hey, my $1 million opportunity showed up and I was ready to receive it. I have people who are like, oh my gosh, I just got this thing, this $25,000, just like that. I have people whose businesses have blown up. But really, my heart and what I love is when somebody comes in and they're like, my daughter came home and she was doing XYZ and I didn't freak out and I didn't respond. And I was able to really just love her and hold space for her. Right.
Mm.
So it's those wins that are near and dear to my heart. Yes, I love the $1 million. Yes, I love the 25,000. Yes, I love the expanding businesses. But if we can't do life day in, day out with that from that place of peace and joy, well then the $1 million, it's not going to be worth it. That kind of stuff is going to fade. So yes, we love it, yes, we celebrate it, but really the real joys that my clients share are the day in day out wins of how they own their power, they own their own energy, they're not in other people's business, and every day they just navigate weller and weller.
So I think you're really talking about conscious creation. And I know when that happened for me, it was like, oh, I create my reality. And it's like, oh, I create so it's this, like you say, it is this acceptance of owning all your crap and no longer
Yeah,
being able to say it's because so and so, or it's because this government agency, or it's because this past person or parents or whatever. No, I have to, because if you don't, then you've disempowered yourself, right? You're either a
100%.
victim or you're a victor. But being a victor means you also have to take that all on. Do you find that overwhelming for people? Or there are some people just not willing to do that process?
Well, let me tell you, Pete, I have a very, very distinct uh, threshold in my business because I don't screw around. I don't candy coat anything. I love you way too much to pretend like you're a victim, right? And so really truly the people in my container really are ready for it. But I think that there is this beauty that is part of my genius of allowance, allowing people to realize that those things really aren't wrong with you. They make up part of who you are and why you
Mm,
came to the planet. They're the things that allow your genius to emerge. And one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think sometimes when we do that whole, I'm going to take ownership. Well, this is all mine and I just have to own it and I created it. Well, what kind of an idiot would create that? So, my favorite thing to share with people is it's the salsa story. And I go, okay, if I'm sitting there and somebody walks over and throws salsa on me, I get to blame them 100%. It's your fault I have salsa on me. You're a jerk. I can't believe you did that. You're so mean. Like whatever that is that needs to come out, right? Because yes, it's their fault that you have salsa all over you 100%. Our parents all messed us up. Perfect. Okay. Blame them. Now, however, now are you going to sit there and continue to go, I'm scratchy and itchy because you threw salsa on me? Oh, the jalapenos are starting to burn my skin and that's your fault. And that's where we draw a line, right?
Hmm.
Yes, it's society and the world and blame it all. Great. Now, do you want to take a shower or are you going to sit there? And that's where that shift between that victim and a victor really starts to play out. But I think sometimes we don't take the time to blame. We don't take the time to say, you know what? When I was a little kid and that happened to me, and I do believe, however, that before we got this body, and again, this is my paradigm, but before we got this body, that we had a choice. Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to experience? Ooh, I'll experience that. I don't necessarily believe that we know all the details about how that gets created, right? So I believe before the foundation of this incarnation and this core that we have ultimate choice, right? To come and the experience. But as a 2 year old, a 3 year old, a 5 year old, a 7 year old, we don't have choice. We're just receiving whatever's happening to us. So from that perspective of those younger years, that consciousness of us needs to go, I'm angry and that wasn't fair, right?
Hmm.
So again, that's the integration, right? Because if we're just blaming, then I'm a victim. But if it's all about me, well, then where is there for forgiveness and misunderstanding and some of the things that happened to me as a child when I didn't have choice, right?
Hmm.
So we get to do both.
I love that salsa story. That's so amazing, and it recalls to me there was always one thing I was never willing to forgive for, and it was abuse that was done against my little brother. And I going on a retreat this past June, I was able to start the process. And what I realized was I wasn't angry at the perpetrator. I
Mm,
was angry at my own guilt and shame because I thought it was my job to protect him.
mm, yeah.
That's what got uncovered. So it was me I ended up having to start to forgive. It was,
Mm.
I mean, it was about the perpetrator, but it was never about the perpetrator.
Yeah, yeah. Just like the money, they're just the excuse for us to go deeper.
Mm,
100%. Yeah.
mm,
I love that. I
mm.
love that.
So I totally get that. Wow. We're going to so many different neat places today, aren't we?
The deeper the better. That's my motto.
Right. So I take it you said you have like a program. I take it you probably have like a private Facebook group and
We
websites.
do.
And do you have like seminars that you do or speaking or what all does Miss Lori, what's all Miss Lori into?
Well, yeah, we have a program and we actually just did some rebranding. And so there's not a lot of stuff out there right now, but it's coming. But we do have a Facebook group and we do have programs. Those are already set up. And I love doing speaking gigs. Don't have any upcoming right now, but on the horizon for sure.
And what part of the country are you located in, Lori? If you don't mind saying.
We're, we're in Boise, Idaho.
Okay. All right. Is that,
Yeah.
and that, I was going to say that's like the wheat belt, isn't it? Or am I wrong?
The potatoes.
Potato. Oops, sorry.
Potatoes.
Starch country.
Yes. Yes.
Well, awesome. Is there any final things that you'd like to say to our audience today before we go? And of course, I'm gonna have all your good, your juicy little links down below and everything.
Perfect. Yeah, I would just say like there's nothing wrong with you. And it
Oh,
doesn't matter what you think is wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you and everything about you and your experience and your past and your future and everything beyond that. It's amazing and it's electric. And when we tap into the rightness of it, man, everything opens up. So sometimes I think we just get stuck in that, oh, what's wrong with me? And how can I fix this? And you're not broken. You don't have to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. When we start from what's right with us, life opens up.
mm, that's just that. Wow. Okay, I'm just, whew, breathe. Ah. Well, thank you, Lori, for being on the Heart Centered Selling Academy. This has been Lori Dodson. She's an integrative business coach, and her program is called Empowered Abundance. Of course, all her wonderful things and details will be down below. I invite all of you to join up with her so that you can get ready to bring in your abundance and be truly empowered. And we'll talk to y'all
Thanks.
later.
Thanks so much, Pete.